Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jared?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. I've feeling a little crankiness lately from not being able to do as much physical activity, an emotion I'm not really used to. But it is what it is. I'm trying to figure that out and work through that.
It's funny because you're still processing your setback. For those of you that didn't listen to that episode, jump on it. Because initially your setback, your attitude was pretty good because you're like, more time for piano and more time. And now you're just kind of irritated with the setback.
Yeah. I was doing a little swimming in the pool and kind of thought I was good and going really slow. I was like, I'm good. Pushed a little bit. Kind of felt just a little tweak in my knee. I was like, man, I can't do shit. Got frustrated, but I'm good, man.
Yeah, I don't think that's abnormal, buddy. I think we, especially are super optimistic. So you're like, all right, I'll be ready in 2 weeks. I'll just do piano. And then it's more than 2 weeks. And you're like, all right, now I'm over it.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of pissed off. What's going on here? That's good. Yeah, life's good, man. It's honestly, I'm just following this coronavirus stuff and trying to figure out what all does it mean for like the gym and traveling, and I don't think anybody really knows.
Right. Kind of scary. You were telling me this morning they suspended NBA?
Yeah. So by the time you guys hear this, they'll probably work through that. But yeah, we're recording early today, so that was the latest.
Yeah.
So crazy. How'd you feel with the practice from the last episode about your value?
Man, it was fun. It was fun to talk about that. That story I told about my career, I hadn't really thought about that in a while. And it was motivating because I was like, man, I'm not bringing home as much money as I was years ago when I started bringing home the entrepreneurship or started going the entrepreneurship route. So it really made me think about that and you know, how I do see my value higher, at, you know, financial value. And it really did make me think about that quite a bit. So I reflected on that and reviewed a lot of the goals, and it was a good episode and exercise for me. How about you?
It was interesting because right after we did that episode, I went to Trey's wrestling banquet, and he got all these awards for the year. And it was interesting for me to watch how as a society we're attracted to external awards. You know, like he got the Hammer of the Year, which was Wrestler of the Year, and he got All Conference. And it's cool to see him hold that, but like the people that are only there for that moment see him and think like, man, he's so good. Mm-hmm. And when I look at him, I looked at the picture of him holding all those awards, and I thought, none of this was possible for him until he started believing in himself, until he started thinking that he had championship value, that his value internally was worth all these external. And I think it was just funny for me to be in that mindset and just to be watching and see how as a society we're attracted to, if you get a trophy from somebody, like you feel good, but reality is that value needs to come first. And then all those externals actually, you're like, okay, these are cool, but because I believe in myself, like I can do more. So it was just interesting to watch that dichotomy kind of is our society. Like we come together, we have a big meal, everybody gets these trophies, and like they think like he's always been that good.
Right.
They have no idea that for many years he wasn't. He was in his process, but it all started like the big switch is when he started just to believe in himself, and he started to give himself championship value instead of, if I win, I feel good. If I lose, I feel bad. He knew he was worth it, and then the outcomes become less important because you're in a process.
Right. They didn't see the process and the hard work that went into getting there.
Which kind of is a lot of people's lives, right? A lot of people think like, you're overnight success. Well, they only see you after the success. They don't see all the stuff up to it.
Right.
You know, so it was interesting, but I think it's a great exercise for people to identify what are your personal values and what is your value.
Yeah.
And then start demanding it from others.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm excited for today, man. I'm excited to meet your buddy.
Yeah.
And
this
should be a good one.
I was seeking some guidance from a few other entrepreneurs in my think tank group, and with everything that we're doing here and what I have going on with Toastmasters, I was looking for just more opportunities of speaking, business speaking, keynote speeches, and I got introduced to someone who later introduced me to Zach here, and he's like, actually, he's here in Fort Collins. He's an amazing keynote speaker. He's an author with a great book, does speeches all around the country, I think sometimes internationally, and has an amazing book out that is right in line with what we do here, really focused on power of authentic purpose.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really excited to bring Zach on and learn a little bit more.
Very cool. All right, well, let's get him in here.
Let's get him. All right, On Purpose community. So we are bringing on Mr. Zach Mercurio. He is a dad to 2 little humans, in his word, and the best-selling author of The Invisible Leader, which is really aligned with what we do here. It's to transform your life, work, and organization with the power of authentic purpose. He also is a Ph.D. researching purpose and meaningfulness in work, life, and leadership, and is an honorary fellow in Colorado State University's Center for Meaning and Purpose in the Department of Psychology. So as you guys hear, we obviously had to get him here on the On Purpose podcast. So thank you so much for coming, Mr. Zach Mercurio. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
Oh, man, what an honor to have you here.
I'm doing great. Yeah,
We're
thank
excited. That's quite the bio.
It is. I had a fun time introducing you right there.
For someone who researches purpose, being on an On Purpose podcast is sort of the pinnacle, right?
Well, I don't know, man. Maybe you have some advice for us afterwards. You'd be like, you guys are a little off purpose right
purpose,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
We do
We
the
gotta
Off
get you
Purpose
back.
podcast. Yeah.
No, it was awesome getting to look into your stuff as we prepared for this episode, and I'm excited for the value you can bring our community.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So we always like to start up with a couple warm-up questions just to get your brain firing.
Yep.
And yeah, Jared, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah,
and
we
kick
don't
us
want
off?
to jump you right into the heavy stuff. It's like a good workout here. We warm you up, we get you going. So we need to know, Zach, one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One food. These questions always give me anxiety. Like the favorite questions.
Yeah.
Because one of my, I'm curious about everything. I can't pick a favorite movie. I freeze up. So I'm freezing up right now. That's okay because I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to dive in.
No, you're going to pick one.
One food. Man, I love chicken wings.
Oh, there you go. That's not bad.
Just the standard hot chicken wings with a nice like pool of ranch
Okay,
dressing.
no blue cheese?
No, I don't do
Ranch.
blue cheese.
Yeah.
Ranch.
I don't either.
Where are we talking from, though? Because Wingstop chicken wings are very different than Buffalo Wild chicken wings.
Okay,
I mean,
like I do the Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay, yeah, I like Buffalo Wild
You know,
wings.
and I don't know what I mean. So
Boneless or bone in?
I'm bone in.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Oh,
The boneless aren't
traditional?
even wings.
It's not a wing. It's just a hunk of meat.
Yeah, that's a patty of
Hey, Buffalo
stuff.
Wild Wings calls them boneless wings. Just saying. That's
Yeah,
what
but
they
it's just
call
like,
them.
hey, I'll have like 4 balls of meat if you're ordering those things. You know what I mean? Not me.
So now let me just follow up on that. Did you get a little confused when they took away the number that you could order at Buffalo Wild Wings?
Oh yeah.
Right before you used to order like 6,
It's
12,
like by
18.
price now, small, medium,
Yeah,
large.
and I don't know, and it's a variable of how many you get depending on how well they like you. I need to know. We're doing wings, like I want to know I get a good dozen.
Right.
I don't want to show up and get 9.
B-dubs getting
There's certain days, where the neural pathways say it's a wing day today, and
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know when
true.
it is. You just feel like that.
Yeah.
I know.
And you gotta get wings.
Do you do the
It's sort of
veggies
like-
with it or no? You do not even waste the time.
No.
You don't even waste the time. I do too.
No.
I'm like, don't give me carrots or
meat on bones, fried and
All right,
with
good.
a lot of sauce on there. That's
All
a
right,
great
so,
question.
so you got the wings. So second warm-up question.
So I'm out. I'm gonna get.
You're
some.
done. You're done. All right. If you could be any superhero, who would it be? And if you had only one superpower, what would that superpower be?
If I could be one superhero, who would it be?
And you can mix them up too. You can be like Batman with the ability to be invisible, right? Even though that's not one of his his superpowers, but you can do whatever
You
you
know,
want.
I'd love to, Spider-Man,
Okay.
because he's got control. He's got a sense of control. I mean, if you see Spider-Man move, I mean, he is so coordinated. Everything's coordinated. I mean, I think he's like a little Buddha, not little Buddha, but he is so like present to his body every time he moves on screen.
Yeah.
Or in real life, because he's real. And the superpower I would attach to that is I'm impatient, so teleporting.
Oh, man.
That'd be great.
Dude, never sitting in traffic again.
That'd be great.
Just like, so it's just a quick story.
Yeah.
My kid, he's 5 now. He's having trouble going to bed, and he falls asleep on the couch. And one day he was like, "Daddy, I have a superpower." I was like, "What is it?" He goes, "I can teleport." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I fall asleep on the couch and I wake up in my bed." No, seriously.
That's great.
So I think there's a magic to this idea of teleporting.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I love it. I feel like you'd be a good Spider-Man.
Thank you.
You should-
Yeah. Is it because I have the bald, rounded head? The suit would fit
That
nice
might
on
be.
there.
That
You
might
too.
be contributing.
Suit would
I
look good
thought
on
he
you.
was going to say it was because you have a fantastic haircut.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Do
You
it
should
myself.
go for a Spidey costume for Halloween one of these
I
years.
know.
Well,
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, same stature,
Yeah.
right?
And honestly, that's be honest, Spider-Man's super popular now because they threw Post Malone
Yeah.
in that soundtrack.
Yeah.
So,
Sunflower.
oh,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
Can't go wrong there. Spider-Man and Post Malone, that's a good duo.
I know.
So you got good
Posty.
music.
Fan over here.
Posty? Yeah, me too.
I don't like to brag about this, but I did get top 2% Post Malone on Spotify notification the other day.
You did?
Top
Oh,
2%.
man.
So
Hey.
I don't share that often, so keep it under wraps because I don't want it to get out of control.
Congratulations.
It was a big
Get
deal.
it?
It was a big deal.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, Post Malone does most of the work. I just listen a lot.
Yeah.
All right,
he's awesome.
final warm-up question, Zach. What book are you currently reading?
So I read. What book am I currently reading? I'm currently reading a book called Blind Sight, and it is a post-apocalyptic science fiction movie about contact. I'm a big hard science fiction fan. So here's what you'll find interesting about me. I write nonfiction.
Yep.
I don't read all that much nonfiction.
Oh, you balance it
I
out.
read a ton of like hard science fiction. So at night before I go to bed, I read fiction. And during the day, I read nonfiction. So during the day, so that book is called Blind Sight. It's a hard science fiction book, which hard science fiction is stuff that could occur in the known universe. So it's all scientific based stuff.
Oh.
So this is like contact with aliens story, and then understanding our consciousness and who we are and why we exist and who made us, all that stuff. I'm into that.
Mainly in the evenings, huh?
In the evening, yeah, before I go to bed. I got to
Are you a
wind
big
down.
dreamer? Do you
Yeah,
have
so I
all
was gonna
these
ask
alien
Oh,
actions?
yeah. Well, I have very vivid dreams.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I bet.
Which
you
I like.
Yeah.
But then during the day, right now, I'm starting with this book called Vision is Victory by this woman named Carrie Conley. And I had met her, serendipitously, sort of like I met you. You gave me your book. She writes about vision and purpose. She lost both her son and her dad and her husband to suicide in the same year.
Oh my God.
And she's writing a book about vision and about purpose. And I'm going through her process of setting, a vision for my life in 3 years, what that would look like. Who would I be? What would I be feeling? What would I be doing? What my relationships would look like. And I've never really paused to do that vision setting.
Yeah.
So I'm just embarking on that now.
What's her book called?
Vision is Victory.
Vision is Victory.
Yeah.
Wow. Karen Conley.
Carrie Conley.
Carrie Conley.
Yeah.
I'll look that one up. It's interesting to me how we were talking off show a little bit about habits, people's habits, and go with values and purpose. And it's interesting to me that people that are what most would say were largely successful are still students. And I think that's one of the things that really propels you in life is that constant desire for more, like the thirst of knowledge. Like listening to you, it'd be easy for you to like, this is my book and people should be fond of this, but like you just literally said, you're practicing her vision process.
Oh, yeah.
to continue to learn. I think that's so so critical for our community to realize, like, you're never at the pinnacle of who you can become. Like, we're always evolving and moving forward. So don't just put yourself in a box and let other, external forces say this is who you are, or this is what my life is. Your life's always evolving, and we've talked about this so many times. Our circle of 5, and that's why we bring on guests like Zach. Like, this can be your circle. We're no longer in the times where your circle is only your neighborhood or who your parents bring around. Like, the world is your circle if you choose to go out and be part of it, man. So that's the fact you're doing other people's vision work, which is probably one of your strengths. Like, you're knowing your purpose is a great strength of yours. You're enhancing it, and that's that kind of took me back. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between having purpose and being purposeful.
Oh, yes.
Big difference. You can have a sense of purpose. I help people realize their own significance. That's why I feel like I'm here. But being purposeful is contribution-centered thinking, being and doing, right? Every day. It's the doing of purpose that makes you purposeful, not having it as some idea. So if I'm being purposeful, I mean, if people who think they've arrived frighten me a little bit, because I think if you think you've arrived, you're probably further away from where you want to go, and that's why that journey is critical, because it's a habit. You don't brush your teeth one day and say, I have good dental hygiene.
Yeah, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't do anything.
It's a continuous journey.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit, Zach, because you mentioned just now that you help people find their significance, and that's a big part of your purpose. But then also that this is a constantly evolving thing to live purposefully, right? You can continuously live with purpose, but sometimes your purpose may be changing. So how would you describe to us in our community, what is your life's purpose? How would you describe that?
Very simply, I think I exist right now to help people realize their own significance. And for me, it came out of, I was youngest of 3 brothers. Grew up in an Italian family in Rhode Island. When you're the youngest, you get good at a couple things: comparing yourself to other people, and entertaining yourself. And then because you got good at entertaining yourself, people forgot about you, and you could just go live in your own world, which is probably why I developed this strength of really thinking and curiosity. But what happened is that I tried to do and have certain things to give myself significance, to measure up, my whole life. And I was one of those people that, I would do sports that I didn't even like just because of how it would look.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So psychologists call those self-image goals.
Yeah.
And the more self-image goals we make, the more anxious and depressed we feel, because our identity becomes hinged on the thing. And so if the thing's not there, like, you don't get onto the varsity team, so too goes your identity.
Yep.
This is one of the problems of being solely motivated by achievements, is the fact that you either achieve it or you don't, and so too goes your identity. And I was just in that cycle, identifying things that were transient, that left, whether it was sports, whether it was friends. I went through high school and college, and I didn't know who I was. I put on so many masks to gain significance that I didn't know who I was before I started putting on the masks. And it coalesced into being in a job that I was unhappy in, I was miserable in, but I made a good amount of money. I was in advertising, and that's when I realized, and I just thought there's got to be something else. There's got to be a different question that we can ask ourselves. And that's when I started really thinking about this perspective of purpose, and I told you this, but I met a cab driver on a lunch break.
Yeah.
And he asked me how I was doing, and I grumbled, "Is it the weekend yet?" And it's astounding how many people do live for 2/7 of their lives, the days that begin with the letter S.
Yep.
And I thought that that's what I was supposed to say to this guy, and I said, "How are you doing?" And he lit up. He was excited, and he talked about driving new people around every half an hour. He said, "I'm the people's parents they don't have, their friends they don't talk to anymore." And it was since that moment I was like, I expected this guy to hate his job, but he loved it because he didn't talk about what he did. He talked about his contribution.
Yeah.
He was purposeful. And it was since then that I became obsessed with how to develop that perspective. But I've realized that you have to realize your own value. You have to realize your significance, that you matter right now, that systemically you can't not matter.
Right.
That every day you put inputs into the system that have an infinite impact that you might never see. You know, the source of the river knows nothing about where it touches.
Right.
But purposeful people tend to be able to see how a discrete thing they do impacts that has that bigger impact. But you have to realize that you and what you do goes somewhere, that you matter. So that's where it came. It really came from that 5-year-old self that fueled this purpose of helping people realize their significance. And I get to do that in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, wow. I really appreciate how you took us on that journey from the 5-year-old self being the youngest sibling, because I'm sure that's a really common idea that the younger siblings have, especially younger brothers, of, oh, you know, I got to live up to big brother's expectations, and they create this identity. And maybe if it's not older siblings, you know, older kids going through school, to where we tend to follow this blueprint. And like you said, if we don't achieve what maybe society expects us to achieve, all our happiness is built into that. So thanks for taking us on this journey. I'm curious to know, this cab drive, so was this still in Rhode Island?
This is in Washington, D.C.
This is in Washington, D.C.
One of the scariest rides of my life was a cab in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
Scary.
I'm not surprised.
So that's amazing that you had this experience with this cab driver. Tell us a little bit about what happened after that. Were you like, I'm quitting my job, you diving all in, or was it a process? Tell us some more.
Yeah. I mean, so going back, I mean, one of the things that I was meeting with a coach, and I said, you know, I don't really have like a traumatic life story to tell.
Yeah.
And he said that just you having to qualify that is your traumatic life story. Like that, like I'm not enough to have a good story.
Oh man.
Do you know what I mean? And he
100%.
said that's your trauma, is that you're yearning for this significance. But I realized that this person that I met, that one purposeful cab driver, is literally, I mean, and I'm not exaggerating this, is the only reason why I'm like sitting here right now.
Wow.
That interaction, 2-3 minute interaction with an anonymous person who had a purposeful perspective. So like I get chills thinking about this.
Yes.
This is why this stuff is not fluffy stuff. You know, this is like that. Did he wake up every day saying, I'm going to have a conversation that could dramatically change the trajectory of a human being's life today?
No way.
Probably not, but he did. So why doesn't he wake up that way? Like, why don't we? Because it's happening.
Yeah.
You're changing my brain composition right now.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Like I met you today.
Yeah.
You know, research finds that I will develop a new neuron to recognize your face. My brain composition is different. We can't not matter, right? So after that interaction, I went back into my office, and I saw this paradox of this guy who was like just joyous. You meet these people every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
We meet them every day, whether it's a barista who's making us coffee that is just kind and nice and there and present. You can feel that. And I go into the office and I see people that it looked like people were sleepwalking after that interaction I had with that guy.
Wow.
And I was like, I had felt a sense of responsibility. It's like, I need to wake up, and I need to help people wake up.
Wow.
To that they matter.
Yeah.
So it was since that moment. So I quit my job and I went back to work in higher education, because I got a college degree, but nobody ever asked me why. You know, I learned a bunch of stuff, but nobody asked me why. Why did it matter? Who was I? What mattered to me? How am I significant? How do my strengths meet up with human needs? Nobody asked me those questions. So I worked in higher education to try to make sure nobody ended up like me. You know, and that's why I went in and I worked with students there. And then I started realizing that even people who worked at the university didn't have that sense of significance. Started interacting with janitors and mechanics, some of the facilities workers. And I started doing trainings across campus. And then I started realizing there was a hunger for this, you know, in the world. Have you all read Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl?
Yeah.
So he says in the foreword of his book, he's like, he talked about his biggest regret in his foreword is that his book is a bestseller because it signifies our intense yearning for meaning and the meaning deficit that we have. And so that's how I got here. And then, just we're meaning-making creatures, so there was a hunger for this, and I started doing it all over the place, helping people realize that significance and realize their purpose and live, lead, work more purposefully.
Yeah, I think so. Take us back real quick to your mental space when that cab driver said that to you, right? When you start that conversation, he's happy about, he's the dad for kids.
Yeah.
How many times do you think that conversation probably took place in your life before that, but you just weren't ready to receive the message?
Yeah, I wasn't. Here's the thing. What our scarcest resource is attention.
Yep.
What we pay attention to is what we think about. Norman Vincent Peale, our thoughts are our world.
Yep. What
we think about, we become. So what was I paying attention to? You look at my story. I was paying attention to acquiring and achieving things.
And that's my point for our community. I want you to listen to Zach's story. He didn't pay $10,000 to go to the biggest seminar to find purpose. He didn't go to fancy retreats. He literally was in a space to pay attention to a person he probably had crossed paths with 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. Maybe not that person, but somebody in that same role. So, which is what we've talked about. Quit looking to everybody else to lead your purpose. It's right in front of you. And the people that can help change you, you're probably interacting with. Or if you're not, switch up your circle. They're around you.
Yeah, the most extraordinary people I meet do ordinary things
look
with an
average.
extraordinary perspective.
They look average because they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have such a fixation on, and I don't want to say it's the victim mentality, but it's a fixation on I just can't have that because I don't have what they have. I can't be this because I wasn't born like them. The reality is we can. We can be all of those things. And the way to get there is usually right in front of us, but we're so fixated in the distance that we don't pay attention to right here, right now.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful.
Think about that's what we talked about, greeting the grocery. We're huge on this, by the way.
Yeah,
so you listen to
good.
some of our
I could tell.
our old episodes. One of our favorite episodes is talking to the grocery store clerks, and we got a message from Ali or about Ali where this clerk says that the entire store looks forward to him coming through the door because he's so nice to one clerk. And think about that. You were nice to one clerk who then shared your niceness with the entire store. So now you're impacting positively an entire store, 99% of which you've never seen.
Right. And it's so easy to break this sleepwalking that you're talking about, right? Because we go through the motions. Hi, how are you? Good. Have a nice day. We don't have to think about our interaction, right? So it's so easy. What I do, even when I don't feel like it, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, I have to do it when I'm interacting because I'm I've set a standard for myself that every time, interaction, barista, whoever, I always ask, what's been the best part of your day? And then people are just kind of taken back because nobody's
Isn't
asking
that reaction
that all day.
sad?
It is, but it's also exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting to see them think about it, and you can see the excitement. They become alive if they're in that zombie trance, and it's so simple. Just like you said, that cab driver was excited for you to ask him, but sometimes people won't ask back, right? You could have just been like, oh, can't wait for the weekend, and been silent the whole ride. He probably gets that a lot, but when you asked it back, he was so excited to express that to you, and that's really all it took. What's the best part of your day, and having that conversation. People really appreciate that. One thing you mentioned that I wanted to come back to, which I think is amazing, was that you said in some of your research, you have found studies that show we create a new neuron every time we see a new face. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's called the Jennifer Aniston neuron, and it comes from a series of studies that was done with a experimental group who said they didn't know who Jennifer Aniston was.
Okay.
Which I don't know how you not need
Yeah,
to know
right?
who Jennifer
They weren't
Aniston
our
is.
generation because they weren't watching Friends every week.
Yeah.
Jen, if you're listening, share this episode on millions of people on your Instagram account. But So what they did is they showed a bunch of pictures to people, and they hooked them up to fMRI brain imaging machines. And they were looking for specific brain activity when those people who said they didn't know who her face was, when they saw the face, what would happen in their brains. And what the researchers found, if you just Google Jennifer Aniston Neuron study, what they found is that, we create an individual new neuron for each face that we see. So we can recognize that face. So like when I work with people and I often ask people, how have you changed the world today? So before this time today, how have you changed the world, right? And most often people are like, who the hell is this guy? Like, this is kind of cheesy question.
Right.
And I said, well, did anybody see someone new today? And they raised their hand, and I often say, like, you literally altered the brain composition of a human being forever just by getting up out of bed and being in their presence. Right.
Wow.
I mean, if you go back, it goes back to like the butterfly effect, right? We love to talk about the butterfly effect, not the Ashton Kutcher movie on Netflix, but
That's what I thought first. I was
But he
like,
could
but
share
you know
this
the
episode
butterfly
too.
effect? Are you familiar with it? Like scientific phenomenon that, it's this whole, if a butterfly flaps its wings in Mexico, it causes a tornado in Oklahoma.
okay.
Well, so there was this guy named Ed Lorenz. He was an MIT meteorologist in the 1960s. He was doing some forecasting for some weather modeling. And when he on accident, he misrepresented some wind readings by 0.02 of a decimal point, right? And he left the office, and he was running the model, and the model completely diverged because of just a small 0.02 of a decimal point of a mile per hour average wind gust.
Wow.
Right,
Wow.
that he was the whole weather pattern diverged. It is called contingency theory, and that everything that we do has an input that has an infinite impact. Mm-hmm. We're good at seeing those concepts, but we're not really good at applying it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, we are in and of the system. So,
Right.
So when you ask your students the question, have you done anything that's changed the world today? Why is that so hard for people to see their value? Why is it so hard?
not just students, CEOs,
Everybody.
social entrepreneurs I've worked with. I ask that question. We can't. Systems thinking is really hard for human beings. The ability to understand how a discrete thing that we do and connecting it and linking it to the bigger impact, that's the crux of purposeful thinking.
Yes.
Right? To be able to do that. And I think it goes back to your point. Like, what are we paying attention to?
Right.
I think we're so fixated on this attention to the then, right? We live in this perpetual if-then argument. Like, if I get a degree, then I'll be successful. If I make it through the weekend, then I'll be happy and rested. If I do this, we live in this if-then argument. So our attention's constantly off the now, right? And Emily Dickinson said the future is composed of nows.
Yes.
So ironically, how we approach the now is our future that we'll create, that we've been obsessing about it. Mm-hmm. But this idea of, I don't think that people can take captive the minute things that they do every day, the ordinariness of impact, right? The everyday getting up, like talking to the person next to you. Like, Ali, I'm not trying to downplay your career, but I think that going in and making somebody feel better, that clerk, that could be the most purposeful thing you do in your life.
Yeah.
Like that impact on like going in and making a human being where they spend probably 30% of their waking life of having them smile, which we know smiling generates the same amount of brain activity as if you were to give them $40,000 of cash. And if you do that every single day, I mean, what is more important than that? And so like, it's just taking captive that and thinking. So I think that people get so fixated on the destination that they forget to think about what they're doing now and how it all aligns. And then I think it's like, people think it's like a cheesy thing to think about, changing the world. But it's impossible not to every day.
Yeah, and I just don't, that's so foreign to me, to be honest with you, because like my whole life, I've always felt like I'm supposed to be doing special stuff. Like I literally wake up and I think like, okay, what special stuff?
Yeah,
am I
I
supposed
love
to
that question. What special stuff?
Yeah, but there was
today.
times. Well, so here's something else though. I'd ask you about this. There was many times in my life, like I got called names for that. You know, you're arrogant, you're conceited. Why do you think you should be doing special? Why aren't you just happy with what you have? Argument. What is your thoughts on why is it so easy to try to pull everybody back instead of to uplift them and to move forward with them? Why do you think that is such a common thing for us?
It's very dangerous for a human being to realize they matter because responsibility follows.
Oh, yeah.
And that's hard.
That's why he likes Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
But like with those students, like, I mean, when I'm talking to a group of college students and they realize that what they say to the person next to them could dramatically change the trajectory of their life in that moment, that's hard to recognize. But it's not about like being perfect, like getting up every day and like making the perfect impact. It's about the awareness that you have the capacity to do so. And I would say some people do say, like, it seems pretty egotistical to think that I can change the world, but there's no shortage. I mean, you know, There's no shortage of people who believe that they deeply matter right now. I think one of society's issues right now is that people are inherently yearning for significance, and people's desire for significance is competing with other people's desire for significance. And we're all trying to be significant and find significance without realizing that we already are. And it's hard because you have to take responsibility for the way people experience you every day.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier. A lot of us are looking for our significance externally
the thing.
versus internally. Like the cab driver didn't base his conversation with you on, well, I will say this and it will lead me here because I will make a difference in his life. He said it because he got value in sharing how important he felt, making a difference to everybody else. And in turn, now it changed you. Yeah. But he may never know that. Right. Like in my book, Bruce, who changed my life as an angry young kid that was heading down the wrong path, the volunteer referee from the sports center that kicked me out of game after game, invested in me. I never got his last name. I never said thank you. I don't know where Bruce is in the world, but I guarantee without Bruce making that choice to spend time with me, I don't end up here. And what did he have to gain? Nothing. He did it because for some reason his purpose was to take this angry young kid who was acting out so bad that his biggest fan in life, mom, wouldn't come even watch him anymore. His purpose was to give and not to seek validation from it in return. And I think that's where we struggle is we are in a giving society now, right? And a lot of people, like, there's buzzwords all around, purpose,
Purpose is a buzzword.
Vulnerability, like you got it all. But I think a lot of us are still misguided in that we venture into it, but we're really looking for what am I going to get?
Yeah, we can make things like purpose an extrinsic reward.
Yes.
An external reward, just like a salary or a paycheck.
Instead of going to the cab driver, or Bruce in my example, their value was not in what they got, but what they gave.
Yeah. Right. And I think it can be perceived in both ways, too. From a selfish standpoint, I like to think about, what is this person going to say? What do I get to hear? What do I get to receive, right? And through giving. But it has taken me a while to get there and be excited for kind of receiving the gift of giving. I've never really understood that, right? And even this last year for Christmas was the most gifts that I've ever purchased for family and friends. And I really felt just a higher level for me in my life of really wanting to give. And I think too that is what we have the primary responsibility for. I heard you, Zach, say that it's scary to take on the responsibility of what others are receiving from us. But for me, I'm not sure if I totally agree, or maybe I'm not completely understanding, because I really focus on what I intend to give. You know, I can show up with a big smile on my face, be really happy, ask someone what the best part of their day is, and they might not receive any positive energy from me. They might be having a horrible day and, you know, tell me to fuck off. But I don't know. So I guess my question is, do you think in a case like that, is that my responsibility for how they receive that?
I don't think that it's taking responsibility for the experiences that you create every day. So the experience that you intend to create and intentionally designing that in your mind, that's what I think is important. I'm talking about the scariness of what happens before that intention. Like, you have to believe that you matter to show up with a smile and make that intention. I think there's a lot of people that aren't even there yet. And I think that's scary when people realize that. So taking the responsibility, you said you feel like earlier you said it's an ethical thing you do. Yeah. That's how you've decided to show up. I think what's scary for people who haven't done a lot of this work is getting to that point before they make that ethical decision that I matter. What I do today in this interaction matters. And I think that responsibility can be scary for people. Taking responsibility for their intention and how they design their experiences. Yeah. I think, like, inevitably, you'll go out there, you'll leave all sorts of, like, the feedback that you get may be overtly negative.
Right.
But you can make a choice in that moment too, because you can respond with negativity and extract energy through your response. But if you continually think about how do I regenerate energy instead of extract from it, then you're actually, I think, creating a great experience for somebody, even though they didn't feed that back to you.
Right. Interesting.
So because you're not based on their reaction to validate your responsibility to share.
You're taking responsibility for your inputs out into the system.
Yeah.
So that's it. So for our community members listening out there, so you go up and you greet somebody and they're negative towards you, right? Or they don't even acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. That's not an indicator that you don't matter.
Right.
That's more of a flag then that they're struggling to find their value. So if I'm the cashier and you come up and say, hey, how's your day going? Or with your normal question, and I don't even acknowledge it, I'm like, $2.04, sir. Mm-hmm. That's not an indictment on you for giving, right?
No.
That's more of an indicator that they're probably struggling to find the value in, why am I a cashier? Why am I here today, right now, in this moment, waiting on you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Right?
And, like, for the question that I like to ask, because there's two things. We either regenerate people's energy or we extract from it more, right? So, like, one of the things that I've been doing is there's things that I don't dislike in my job sometimes. Like, I don't like email.
Yeah.
First, it overwhelms me. I get stressed about it. I ruminate about it. I think it's the static nature of there's a message, and I can't automatically respond to the person who sent the message.
Right.
That gives me a lot of anxiety, right? There's a lot of things in our days that aren't pleasant to do. What purposeful people do is they take captive those things and think about the human being that's inevitably at the end of how you do the thing. So what I've started doing is before I send the email, if I get an angry email or something I disagree with, before I just like shoot it back to them, I typically ask myself, I write the response, I sit back, I breathe a few breaths, I read the response, and I ask myself, will this response extract from their energy or regenerate their energy? Mm-hmm. And you'll be surprised, like it's even that, like, right? Like, so that person who's saying fuck off to you, they already probably have low internal energy, low sense of dignity. At least you can say, I'm not extracting from that. Like, you're regenerating that. You're adding positive energy into that input.
Right.
I'm saying that people often say, like, to that person, what do you think people often do when someone says, like, fuck off to them? What do you think is the natural reaction?
Respond back with it? Or something
respond back with anger, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In anger, cynicism, frustration, negative emotions, The only biological reason they exist is to help us survive. Really great when we're being like, the bus is coming at us in the street. We need to get out of the way. Not so good when you're trying to regenerate a cashier's energy when they're not feeling it that day. And so what happens is we narrow our attention. We become focused on our own survival. And we actually become worse, too, by how we respond. So,
and I would say most people feel that, right? Like you feel, at least in my experience, you feel when you act out of anger towards someone.
yeah.
Right? There's like that instant, I wouldn't say gratification, but like, I told you. And then a couple minutes later, you're like, God, why was I an asshole? Why did I do that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's felt on top of the world when they're a jerk.
No.
Like, you don't feel a rush of dopamine and oxytocin when you're an ass to people. It just, we're not actually built that way.
Right.
No, we're designed to be givers.
Yep.
Right, our human spirit is designed to empower and uplift and move forward with people. But for a lot of us, we kind of, maybe you might disagree with me, but I would say we take the easy road. And the easy road is comfort. And if I don't wake up every day, how am I going to change the world? I don't have that responsibility to go out and greet the people that I see throughout my daily interactions. I can just go through the motions because I'm in my comfort.
Yeah.
And then I might greet the people that I see as important that are going to move me somewhere in life. But what I always go back to is the most important people around you every day, and you're missing those opportunities to really learn lessons, empower them. And maybe your greatest attribute in your life when you die isn't that you achieved anything. Right? Maybe that's it. Like here I'm totally okay with this, guys. I may die having achieved nothing. But what if one word I shared or one act I did or one greeting I gave inspired them and they changed the world?
You know, David Brooks, he's a New York Times columnist. He wrote this column that I read like almost weekly. And he wrote, there are two types of virtues. There are resume virtues and eulogy virtues. Resume virtues are the things that you achieve to improve your self-image. Eulogy virtues are the things that people will say about you at your funeral. Nobody's going to say, oh, you know what? Gosh, Ollie had a great quarter.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, he sold his business for X amount of money.
Right.
What an amazing human he was.
Right. Oh, man, that GPA was so stellar.
Oh,
good work.
Man. I mean, he got into Columbia.
So true.
No, like, and the thing about legacy, right, is that, like, we're building it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, I think so many of us, me included, are guilty of
associating
value to these external rewards. You know, business, finance, all of these things, these achievements, right? These degree, everything, to where. So this is an amazing message. This is an amazing. I know. After today, I'm gonna think about that and think, how can I change the world today? Like you said, though. Most people are probably going to be like, that's cheesy, right? Most people
I
don't
get it all
think
the time.
that way. Yeah, it's like change the world. What is that? So this is a fantastic message. How do you get to the point to where people adopt this idea and can feel that they do have this kind of value within them without having to hit all these, achievements? Because unfortunately we've been conditioned this way from preschool, right? You kindergarten, you get an A, or maybe it's not even an A, maybe it's a green check mark, right? You have all these external rewards that you're being assigned value. So what do you do, Zach, to really help people understand that they have the power to change the world every day?
Let's back up a minute and make it clear that I'm not saying results and achievements aren't important.
Of course.
They're effects.
Yep.
So the problem that I see is that we become obsessed with getting an effect by pursuing the effect, right? But it's just basic, like cause and effect. Every effect has a cause. Every result for us has a contribution. Like your business is going to be more successful if you relentlessly focus on your contribution that you make rather than focus on meeting a number. Mm-hmm. The number's going to be better. This is the irony of all of this. The results that we're achieving, our achievements become better. The research is clear on this. When we are purposeful, when we relentlessly pursue our contribution, results, quote unquote, typically follow. You see it with the research on purposeful organizations or companies that are obsessed with their end user, the human problem they exist to solve, the need they exist to fulfill, and they relentlessly pursue that even when the markets are tough. We know data shows that the results are better when we focus on contribution, for ourselves. So I want to make it clear that for a business, for example, I often say you have profit because of purpose.
Yes.
So that you can deliver more purpose. Right?
Yep.
And I think that's true with us as people. So it's just seeing the cause and effect. If we relentlessly focus on our contribution every day, where our unique strengths, our passions and talents meet up with human needs every day, where, as my grandfather, who's 97 years old, says to me all the time, Zach, how do you improve the moment? If we think about how do we add and regenerate the moment, then whatever we do will be better. So you'll probably be more likely to get into that grad school you're pursuing if you go into class instead of you're thinking, how can I get a good grade in this class? And instead you go in and say, how can I really understand why this knowledge base exists in the world? And how can that help me deliver my reason for existence? You're good. I mean, the result is going to be better, right? I see this with the janitors I interviewed for this research study on how they come to experience meaningfulness in work. One of the janitors, named Mary, she was at the university for 25 years, had gotten a retirement plan. She cleaned the dormitories. And she came out of retirement right before my first interview with her. And I said, Mary, why did you come out of retirement? And she said to me, Zach, I couldn't stand the thought of those kids in that dormitory not having a mom figure away from home.
Wow.
Right? That purpose was such a powerful psychological force that it pulled her out of retirement to do it again. But now I want you to imagine Mary, and then I want you to imagine Bob. Bob's there to get the paycheck, to get the retirement plan. Mary's there to be an educator. They both face the same stressful situation. The result of how they move through that situation is going to be different. Mary was promoted faster than anybody else. She was in demand as a cleaner in the dormitories and residence halls. And that was a result, right? Versus, and she relentlessly pursued that contribution that she made. So I think getting people to see that link is really important. That, on LinkedIn, I get messages from results-driven professionals. I'm always like, results of what?
Yeah.
Getting people to really adopt a contribution-centered perspective right now, and being able to see that link between cause and effect, I think is really powerful. And it goes back to the questions we ask. So instead of, I get up every day, and I had this habit last year, I look at my calendar, what do I have to do today?
Right.
I mean, if you imagine your thoughts as a motivational speaker, it's disturbing. Think about your thoughts in the morning. What do I got to get through today? Mm-hmm. Go get them.
Right.
It's like, what the hell's wrong with us?
Right.
But I've started looking at my calendar being like, how is what I'm going to do today going to impact other people? And that's where we become optimized. And the results follow.
Yeah, and I think that for me, subconsciously, I crave that. I desire that. And I think maybe for most, on a very deep level, that we all want to connect, right? That's why the absolute worst punishment for a human being is solitary confinement, right? No interaction at all, because deep down inside, we want human interaction. We want connection. Even if we're bah humbug guy, Mr. Scrooge, right? Even if we have this exterior shell that makes it look like
probably
we don't
especially
like to,
if
probably
even
especially
more so.
Exactly. Even if we have this type of exterior, that's what we want. And for me as an entrepreneur, I get lost in it sometimes because entrepreneurship can be a lonely path. So that's why I really do relish and savor the moments that I get to even interact with a barista, have coffee with other people when we don't have this constant community. And another thing too to notice is, why do you think people always say, oh, the glory days, right? Back in high school or in college. Why do you think? Because there's always community, right? We're impacting people every day. There's a study, you probably know about it, Zach. I believe it was Harvard who did it, but it was the longest study of happiness on happiness ever done. I think they followed thousands of people for like 60 years or 70 years of their life, and they interviewed all of them on their deathbeds and asked them about any regrets that they had, if they could do things in their life differently. And it was an overwhelming amount. I believe it was around 98% or something like that, that everyone's first answers were all relationship based. All about people. Like you said, it wasn't about the quarter. I wish I worked more. It was all about, I wish I spent more time with my partner, with my kids, all relationship based. And I think that, that it's all cohesive. This Jennifer Aniston thing, you could almost make an argument that good brain health is meeting people, is interacting with people. You're building new neurons. And if you can build one neuron just off of looking at a face, I wonder what you're going to generate by having a purposeful conversation with someone.
Yeah, and there's a part of our brain, UCLA Semel Center for Neuroscience finds that there's a part of our brain that's hardwired for contribution. So when we either think about our impact on other people or we actually help someone else, we get a boost of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the happiness trifecta of neurotransmitters that control for things like mood, movement, and motivation. And what are we all trying to do, right? We want to feel better. We want to do better, motivation. We want to move better. We want to be more fit. And one of the key predictors of that is contributing to others, which is accessible in your worst of days.
Yeah.
And I would argue not only is it accessible, it's, to me, almost inexcusable to go through your days and not offer contribution. Right? Like, what are we truly here for? And our community is fantastic. I know they're going to go out and contribute. But think of the days we've wasted, the interactions we missed out on because we didn't give. The person we didn't talk to, the person we didn't greet, the time instead of interacting with the human right next to us that we sat there and we checked email, even though we know email stresses us. And we just miss these. And that's my big takeaway. And what I really want the community to understand is this is not elite. This is not esocentric. It's here. It's available for all of us. Yeah. And I'm simple, right? Like, I can't quote a whole lot of UCLA studies and Harvard. Like, this guy's always telling me about all this Ivy League stuff. To me, it boils down to one thing. It's a choice. I get to choose every day that I'm blessed waking up. I get to choose, how do I approach that day? Gracious, intentional, giving?
Yep.
Or do I want to go through and live the same day I lived the day before? Either way, I'm going to go. I got 24 hours, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't come up short, because then I have regrets. But it's literally a choice. So if you could give our audience like 3 tips for them to practice, how do they bring more of this in their life? What would you say? Or 3 easy things for them to do.
First is take captive the questions you ask yourself. So even not the just overt exercise of like mantras or writing things down, but I mean the voice inside your head. What questions is your mind asking yourself? So just like me, my mind would wake up and say, what do I have to do today? Like there's that thought that has a voice. That's where our attention gets grounded. Like, for example, and I've been telling this story a lot recently, but my preschooler was hating going to preschool for a while, because he was paying attention to all the things he didn't like about getting up, putting on clothes, going to school. And I just started asking him 2 questions at the end of each day. Who did you help today? And who helped you today? Non-punitive, right? So I just ask him. First couple weeks, wasn't into it, didn't tell me. He slowly started telling me who helped him. A few weeks ago, he came to me. This is about a month into asking that question every day. He finally came and he said, Daddy, I couldn't think of who helped me. I'm going to have to look harder tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
That took like a month of relentless asking the question, of retraining attention. So the first thing is, where is your attention? Is your attention focused on what went wrong, what's going to go wrong, how you have to get through, or is your attention focused on how you can contribute? So at the beginning of the day, you're like looking at your calendar, just asking, how is what I'm going to do today going to impact other people? At the end of your day, asking yourself and forcing yourself to do it. There might be some people listening that's like, that sounds kind of cheesy. But it's like forcing yourself to actually say at the end of the day, when did I matter today? When did I feel like I most mattered today? And ending your day with thinking about that over time. And again, it's not gonna change in a week. You may see some changes in a couple of weeks. But if you ask yourself that every day for a month, 2 months, you slowly start rewiring your mind to pay attention to what matters. The other thing I would say is spend some time thinking about where your unique strengths do make an impact. So like I have students ask themselves 3 questions every day, and I have them do this for a whole semester, so 3 months. Write down 3 lists at the end of each day. What did you love to do today? What did you love? It could be simple, like I loved like interacting with a barista. What were you good at? So these are the things that people ask you to do because you're just good at them. And then how did you positively contribute to a human being today? Or a substitute question is, what bothered you about the world today? At the end of 7 days, you'll have 21 lists. What you're going to find is after you look at these lists is there are themes.
Yeah.
And the intersection of those themes becomes this idea of your unique contribution. Where your strengths meet up with a human need is like your fingerprint. I've done like 10,000 of these purpose statement exercises. I've never seen the same one, even in the same occupation that people are in. Because I think that that's a powerful lesson. And then the third thing is to turn this idea of purpose. Ask yourself, if I were living purposefully, like all the stuff we've been talking about today, if I were approaching every day with a contribution first mindset, thinking about my impact, what would it feel like? Like write down some feeling ideas. What would it feel like for me and for other people? Then ask yourself, for each of those feelings, who would I have to be to feel that way? So if I were being purposeful, I would feel inspired. For me to feel inspired, I would have to be appreciative, let's say. And then in the third column, just write down for each of those being qualities, how you show up. What would you have to do? If there was someone that was following me around with a checklist saying, oh, Zach was appreciative today, what would I actually be doing? And then hold yourself accountable for that last column, those habits, because those become your purpose behavioral indicators. The being qualities are those values, and the feelings that you get is the result, right? And we always want to feel more inspired, so we focus on the result and not the behavior. So develop a set of behaviors that you can commit yourself to and keep track of those. And that's how we make purpose, I think, more than an idea and turn it into habits.
Love it.
I'm not speechless too often.
That's really turning into behaviors. Because one of the biggest problems with this idea of purpose is that it's stimulating. We love talking about it.
Right.
I mean,
it's the follow-up.
Yeah, but again, like I said at the very beginning, there's a massive canyon between having purpose and being purposeful.
Yep, absolutely.
And that canyon is filled with habits. You know, you bridge that gap with habit building.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thank you, Zach. That was amazing. I personally am going to get a lot of benefit from some of these exercises, and I know our community will as well.
Let's make sure, where can people follow you, Zach, if they want more?
Yeah, so the best place is zachmercurio.com, and I have this newsletter, semi-monthly newsletter called The Spark, and I just muse about purpose and meaningfulness, and usually I'll have like a try this section where it's something that I've tried that comes out of like the studies on meaning and purpose. Sometimes it doesn't work out well, sometimes it does, but I give that exercise and have people try, and you can sign up on zachmercurio.com. And then, you know, all the social channels at Zach Mercurio. Luckily my name combination is not very common. So, you know, follow me there, and again, love to connect. And the other thing that I would say, my call to action for people is that, and I think you mentioned this, is that you can also be a meaning giver. So you can show people the evidence of their mattering. So, you know, sometimes we go in, and if we want to give the clerk meaning. But by showing them like, hey, when you smiled at me, it really made my day better. Like that's how we can give meaning to people, to the ordinary people, to help them realize that they're extraordinary. So be a meaning giver. So go out and tell someone the difference that they made. Don't just say good job. Show them the difference that they made.
Fantastic advice. Yeah. Awesome, Zach. Thanks so much for
being
here.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening.
On Purpose Community, I'd recommend you listen to this one twice. You're going to have to go back, hit it twice. Don't do all these speed listening on this one. I want you to slow down and take it all in. And, man, thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
guys.
Zach.
Thank you.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.